Welcome back to another episode of What the Heck Next, episode 41. I promised myself I would stick with it. When Hollywood dried up, and you know how it goes, life has a way of changing your plans, the ones we didn't plan to change. I started this podcast. At first, I had tons of people that wanted to talk. Now people are just exhausted. They don't want to talk. They want to figure out what to do next. We're going to talk a lot about it. I have had some experiences this week that I'm going to share with you. Some stuff has come up that's really interesting. Let's get into it. This is What the Heck Next. My name is Carrie Morrow, a 40-year producer in Hollywood. I got a lot to share. Let's go. This is What the Heck Next, my podcast that I started almost a year ago. July 10th will be a year. Talking about Hollywood and my life in Hollywood or not in Hollywood. What's going on? It just seems like Hollywood's just dragging behind a pickup truck by its throat. But I've had some really interesting experiences this week that has opened up a bunch of stuff in my head, kind of in my heart, because opportunities to interview for shows are so few and far between for everybody, even my friends. I got a text this week from a friend of mine who really is a crew member that worked for me, and we've known each other for, oh my gosh, probably 15 years. She wrote me. She said, "Oh, I didn't see you at the big national meeting at the Directors Guild." I didn't go because I just don't have anything to say about what they're not doing about Hollywood. I did not go. She asked me, "How's it going?" I said, "Well, I haven't worked in a long time. Opportunities are few and far between." She responded with, "How's retirement?" No, nowhere in my response did it say, "Oh, I retired. I'm sitting on a beach with a cocktail and a little umbrella in my drink." I responded, "I'm unemployed. I'm not retired." We've talked about this many times. At the same time, let's talk about irony. I have an agent. I actually have a couple of agents, but I have one agent in particular who really shows up every once in a while with some valid opportunities, or you hope they're valid opportunities. She says, "I put you up for this show." This was a show that she was told was financed and going to Mexico. She sent me the script. I signed the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, which I've talked about. I read the script, which was filled with a lot of challenges, but for whatever that's worth, is in every show. I got on the call with the two filmmakers. I was rather optimistic about having an opportunity, but as the conversation unfolded, it became apparent to me that they didn't have financing. I thought they did because they were looking for what they call gap financing. I think they have a few $1,000,000 and they're looking for a few million more in the way of an incentive, which is a lot more complicated now than it used to be because of the economy, the world, money. It's not so easy to find incentives that serve. This particular movie takes place in a tropical environment. Originally, they thought Mexico would work for them, but when they got on the call with me, they quickly said, "We just found out that Mexico won't finance the incentive," which means, let's just use 5 million for an example. The incentive is 30%, which means what you spend in Mexico, which by the way is a very new incentive, very new. This new president, Claudia Sheinbaum, initiated a 30% rebate or taxable credit sold on the open market at a percentage. So even if it's 30%, you're not getting 30% back. That has to be sold for another percentage by a broker who's going to charge you and take money out of that. There's also an audit fee, which you pay a company in Mexico to audit your entirety of your books, your records, everything you spent in Mexico. It also has restrictions. Sometimes they don't include what you're spending on Americans to get there or actors. It just depends. So 30% sounds great, but it's not always that. It's a very new incentive. I would be a little reserved about what you actually would be getting back. But I see that I get on the call. They are also concerned about Mexico. I was on this call for a long time, near an hour and a half. We were talking about productions, ideas, thoughts. I had pointed out to them that the script was challenging because the story takes place in one night. The bulk of the story, and I counted almost just under 50 pages in one night, which means it's continuous action and it almost has to be shot in order because of what the girls look like as they go through this night. And that's complicated. The person who was going to direct this movie was this young director. She had also written the script. She was producing it. She was acting in it, and she was directing it. That's a lot of hats. Can it be done? Sure, with a great support system. She quickly told me she did not want to make this movie Directors Guild of America, which I am in the Directors Guild for 33 years. But the point is, the Directors Guild of America is the finest and the highest ranking crew talent, period. Nobody aspires to be a non-Directors Guild assistant director. You go, oh, in Hollywood, I can't wait to get into Hollywood and never join the DGA. That's, as they would say, shooting yourself in the foot. Not only does the Directors Guild serve as a vehicle to help you promote your movie, it serves as protection for the movie. It serves as guaranteed payment. They actually hold your salary in bond to make sure that all of the DGA staff gets paid. But most importantly, to be a member of the Directors Guild, that is like, you can't imagine when I say go get the broom from the witch, years to get the qualifications to join the Directors Guild at an enormous fee, $10,000 to $15,000 as a membership, and by the way, 3.5% of your salary every year. So this guild, and it's not a union, which is different than a labor union, this guild ensures a production pretty high-level protections, also for the director, especially as, let's note, it's called the Directors Guild. It also protects the director for their prep, their post, their cut. The director's cut of a movie is sacred. That's in the guidelines of what is being protected. I had asked, is this going to be DGA? Quickly, ew, no. Why would I don't want to spend the money on that. Like, why would I? That was a very short-sighted answer. Spending the money is relative to what you get. What I had recommended was, I highly recommend it because you're wearing so many hats. You wrote it, you're going to be in it, you're going to direct it, you're going to produce it. That's a lot of hats to wear to bring in an assistant director, which is not what I am. I am in the category in the Directors Guild of what they call unit production manager. That is between the director and the assistant directors, unit production manager. And I'm the captain of the DGA ship. I also wear the producer hat, but that's called a combo job. I've explained that I get credit for both jobs. She quickly said she didn't, I don't need to be DGA. And I quickly said to her, it would really serve you to have the finest assistant directors because you want to be in front of the camera and controlling what happens behind the camera in the monitor, what you're going to capture, what you're going to get, how many takes, what your cuts are, how long your day is. And one of the issues that was brought up was that in Mexico, the crew generally gets paid by the day. not by the hour. In the United States, because it's union, they get paid by the hour. Now, somebody recently told me that Mexico is starting labor unions, so maybe they've changed to hourly wages, but in general, they give you a 5.5 day week, meaning they work 5 days and a half a day for the sixth day, which is 6 hours flat. Now, when I was there, this is a few years ago, maybe it's changed, but to my knowledge, they get paid by the day. Therefore, if you would like to shoot longer than 12 hours, now think about it. It's exhausting. This movie takes place at night, which means people are on their feet from 5 in the afternoon until 7 o'clock in the morning. And she got annoyed and said, I have to have overtime if I want it. I said, well, in Mexico, generally the respectful thing is we're finishing at 12 hours and then you go back. So therefore your day has to be really planned, airtight. The assistant director is the person that navigates that parameter. They're the ones that literally map out what they time their day down to the minutes. They look at all the work that's scheduled for that day, and they know how long it's going to take to light, how long it's going to take to get the person in makeup. Is there an effect? Is there a stunt? Is there an explosion? Is there a mess? Adding in dinner, adding in travel time. They are responsible for that. Truly, that is a really seasoned person who is out there protecting the production and the budget because, by the way, we're budgeted for 12 hours. So that person is helping me make sure that we are staying in our lanes. That's what we do. Everything on a movie, as much as you'd love to say, creative, and the budget must be met, not just in general, not just the bigger picture, daily. Every category, every department, every day, every bit of work. Also, there is a certain amount of work that needs to happen to edit the movie together. You have to have what they call coverage. So the camera has to move and cover all the speaking parts and all the different people in the scene. Remember, think about this. I told you, turn off the volume, watch a movie with the volume off, and you are going to see how many times that camera moves in one scene. What the standard formula of wide shot, two shot, close up, singles, doubles, reverse. They're talking to me and I'm talking to them. Then they have to turn the camera around. And yes, it's a standard to have more than one camera, but on low budget, that's a luxury. You have to be able to know what your scene looks like completed in your head. So you have a shot list, and the Directors Guild AD will put out a schedule that literally times out to the minute. We're going to take 2 hours on this and 3 hours on this. From the minute we set up in the morning, they will tell you, I will have my first shot by this time. That's how great they are. The best? No, just how to squeeze Cinderella's foot into that daily shoe. So back to the interview, I could see it was kind of an exploratory conversation, not so much a factual one, meaning we have this much money, this is where we're shooting, and we'd like you to produce it for us. It really started to swell into a conversation of what ifs. What if? What if we don't go to Mexico? What if? What do you think if we shoot somewhere else? What do you think? I'm going to be completely honest. I wasn't prepared, and I was very excited. I was excited to have the conversation of potentiality of A, having a job, B, doing a movie. I really was speaking kind of out of enthusiasm, and I actually said, well, what about Fiji? It was 47%. And what about Puerto Rico for the 40%, Puerto Rico 20%? non-Puerto Rico, 25% in Dominican Republic, Mauritius, Colombia for 40%. These were exploratory conversations, except I didn't realize that they were looking for facts and I was speaking in what ifs. I hadn't researched it because I wasn't prepared. And by the way, I wasn't hired. I didn't have the job, but I was being vulnerable. I was being generous with my enthusiasm. Here comes the dinger. So I threw out all these potentials and they were so excited and they were telling me how much they loved me and they were so excited to meet me that I offered up my phone number and I said, please, you know what? Let's build this together. Call me and we can sort of pull back the layers, which is very generous when I didn't have the job, but I did it. A day later or 2 days later after the phone call, I get a text message. And it was this director and her producing partner on the original call. And the producing partner was texting me saying, what made you think that Fiji was 47%? You're wrong. I called them and it's 20%. Well, I was wrong. Guess what? I should have said I need to verify my math, but Fiji used to be 47%. I'll check into it. I knew what Puerto Rico was because I had just done that budget for somebody else. So I knew what Puerto Rico was for a fact. I knew what Dominican Republic was for a fact. I knew what Colombia was for a fact. They were so pregnant with Fiji because I had said 47% cash back. I misspoke. Okay, it was an exploratory conversation, but because I didn't realize at the time they were looking for that missing funding piece, or by the way, maybe they don't have any funding, that they were smoking mad. They sent me a nasty text like, excuse me, where did you ever get the idea that it was okay? Everybody calm down. All right. It was an error. I apologized for it. But then they said, we like the Puerto Rico idea, but we don't want to go somewhere where we can't fly nonstop. Now, when I was in Puerto Rico, it was nonstop. Actually, JetBlue and American were nonstop at some point. I guess with all this airline craziness and cutbacks, it's not nonstop anymore. I said, I think American or JetBlue had a nonstop, and they write me back, no, they don't. You're wrong. You keep making mistakes. I don't even have the job, and I'm really just being kind enough to help you. So here comes the big zinger. I actually get a phone call from the person who was directing, writing, starring it, producing it, which is usually a big red flag. But I get a call. She's pretty pissed off and she starts to scold me and tell me she's so disappointed in me. She really, really liked me. And this is such a disappointment because she went back to her producing partners who said, get rid of that woman. Like she misspeaks. She said to me, I need you to promise me on this call, say these words, I will never misspeak again. Okay. I actually profusely apologized for my misspeaking. And I said to her, I will never, speak a fact without verifying it ever again in this situation. Producers explore conversations and options constantly. I gave her the example that many years ago when I was working for Joel Silver, he was looking for an incentive for this very big picture, like a $50 million picture. He said to me, where can we go? Where can we get an incentive? I don't want to go far. I had heard Puerto Rico at the time. His producing partner said, no movie of mine's being made in Puerto Rico. So I said, well, Hawaii had a decent incentive at the time. He said, get on a plane, go see. I met with the film commissioner and I went there, but what I saw was that they did have a really lovely incentive based on what you spent in Hawaii. This is This is 15 years ago. What you spend on their island, not what you bring in, what you spend there. After spending a couple of days there and touring, I realized there was no crew at the time. There was no resources, no equipment. There was nothing there. So the big percentage didn't even matter because it wouldn't add up to anything. When I got back to Los Angeles and sat with Joel and his partner, I said I thought Hawaii would work, except that having physically gone there, I realized that wasn't a good recommendation. That's kind of the tone of what I was trying to do here. Was I wrong about Fiji being 47%? Yes, very. It's actually 20 something percent. I felt really bad all week and tried to figure out, well, first of all, did I even lose an opportunity? Because I'm not quite sure this is an opportunity. But second of all, gosh, I've done this for 40 years. Give me the job and I'm happy to flush it out. But that's where I screwed up. Okay? That's where my kindness, my wanting to please really, really pooped all over myself, because here I was doing a kind thing and they liked me, my energy on the phone, and they didn't see through that. I just was throwing it out there. Should I have said, give me the job and I'll explore everything? What I learned is that my expression, everything you say can and will be used against you. That's what happened here. We're in a different Hollywood. We are in a different Hollywood. We used to be so exploratory and let's go see and let's go find out and let's go figure this out together. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Fiji used to be. Okay, so where should we go now? Why would you take a person that you really connected with and then spit them out? We're just trying to make your movie, but maybe you were trying to put on me the responsibility of making your movie happen. No, that's not my job, to make your movie happen. My job is to make your movie happen with the money you have, with the ideas that I've brought. As we get into production and as I have a signed contract, we explore, we take chances. I actually ended the call by saying, I see you're grossly disappointed in me, which I think is a mistake, because you're going to find somebody else that's going to tell you everything you want to hear, and then you're going to say, wow, something they said doesn't line up, and you're going to wish that the person you liked most of all, which was me, was on the show. This is a very difficult time in Hollywood. My friend Liz, my dear friend Liz, and one of my avid followers and listeners, she sent me an article today, and it just said, Hollywood jobs are so drying up that people are just getting backup jobs, which is, like I've said, friends driving for Uber Eats and working for Nordstrom's Rack, doing anything. And I really don't recognize this time because we used to have so much fun figuring it out together. Things change. The example I said was, what if I said to my daughter, oh, look, the Shell station on the corner is $6 a gallon. You should go get gas there. And then she goes there and it's $10 a gallon. Okay, that's the world we live in. Things change. You think you have an incentive. You could apply for the incentive. Go ahead and try Mexico for 30% and then spend a year, 1 year trying to get your money back, because that's how things work in Mexico, really slow. I made suggestions. Everything I said was used against me, but I will never regret being kind and generous and smart and really bending over backwards to try to make productions happen. That's my lesson for the week. It's a fascinating lesson, but I wanted to share it with you because that's how vulnerable and shaky grounds Hollywood is on. And I do my best. Hey, I should just be the cold fish line producer. Hi, yes, I'm available. Let me know if you'd like to hire me. I was way more than that, because I am way more than that. I'm not going to feel terrible for being way more than that. It's gotten me this far. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of what I've done. I am not going to be shamed by, I misspoke. Guess what? I'll end here saying there's no nonstop flights to Puerto Rico from Los Angeles. Well, I had a crazy week, and My agent actually called with a different opportunity. Let's see what happens there. Staying open, staying optimistic. And as far as the update on my house goes, I am making peace with the money that I've been sent. I am actually going to function as the general contractor and hire the subs, initiate a plan forward that's going to put my beautiful home back together. Pray for me because I think it'll work. I'm excited to get started. I have somebody that I'm working with that seems like they have my back. Anyway, I hope you had a fabulous week. That's what I've been up to. My name is Carrie Morrow. This is my weekly podcast about Hollywood, about life, about everything. I'm really grateful to be here. Summer is upon us. It feels great to be outside in my rental property. Very, very blessed to be here. Gives me peace every day. That's where I'm at. This is What the Heck Next. Life has a way of changing all our plans, the ones we didn't plan to change. You can find me on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Every day I'm on those sites with my posts, my insight, and my Hollywoodness. I'm so grateful for the time and the attention that you give me. Please click that subscribe button and tell others to listen to me too. I'm building my universe here the best I can. And you know why? Because great things happen when you shoot the puck. Like we say, go shoot your puck. Have an incredible week. Thanks.